Welcome to lesson 3. Today we're going to talk about hems and finishes. Hems are the way we edge a garment or a project, and finishes are the way we do the inside seams. I know in here we're talking about hems first and then finishes, but let's go to finishes first. So whenever you have a seam, you don't want to leave a raw edge. And there's different ways of correcting that. One is the overcast finish. And this zigzag looking thing creates a lock and it keeps the fabric from fraying. This is what you would use if the material is too thick to fold it under or to do the French seam or the flat felled seam. Another way to do a finish is you sew it and you fold it to one side and you zigzag or overcast together, or you can split it and you do half of the seam this way, half of the seam this way. Either way, the front is not going to matter, and the back, it will look nice and clean. Another type of finish is bias tape or bias hem. Now, what is bias tape? Bias tape is basically a piece of fabric that you cut on the diagonal. Every fabric has grain in it. Can you see the grain going vertically and horizontally? Now, if I were to cut a strip diagonally, that would be bias tape. And we use the bias tape to create these real pretty finishes. And here's how you do it. You see how that opens up? And you encase that in there. And then you sew over the top of it. And you can do the same thing with a hem for a garment, or we did the hot pot pad, and I think it would be real nice to do a bias hem around the hot pot pad. I think, it'd give you a nice finished look. So how do you make bias tape? You can buy it in a store, of course, but I bought this gizmo. Look, this is a whole set, and this is a 2-inch bias tape. They have different sizes, smaller and bigger. And so you get your fabric and then you feed it through here, and watch. As you pull it out, it folds it for you. Can you see? And so all you have to do is get your iron, and as you pull, you iron. And this is how you create bias tape. I'm sorry, I wish I had somebody to hold my camera for me. Anyway, that's how you create bias tape. And then how you attach it, of course, like I said, you fold it over the edge of your fabric, or you can get this foot that goes on your machine. And what you do, I don't know if you can see, you sandwich your fabric between the bias tape and you feed it through the foot. And then as you sew, it just keeps everybody where they should be. The foot, let me take this out. The foot has grooves. You see that? And the bias tape fits in there. And this is adjustable because you might have thicker or wider or narrower bias foot. So this is kind of interesting, the bias tape. It's a really cool thing to do. All right, so let's talk about hems. One hem that we want to talk about is the narrow hem. Okay, this is real small. You fold it once, you fold it twice. Now you can do single fold hem, which would basically have a finish like this, and then you fold it over, and that's all there is to it. But this would be like a single folded hem, for example. I zigzag or overcast the raw edge, and then I stitched, and that's what it looks like on a front. But I finished the raw edge. This would be a double folded hem where I folded a little bit on the inside and then I did my hem. And again, on the front, it looks real pretty. You can do a very narrow hem, which is a double folded hem, but really narrow. And again, we have a gizmo. It's another foot that goes in your machine, and it rolls the fabric for you. And so you basically feed the fabric and it just rolls everything for you real nice and even all the way through. All right, then we have a blind hem. The blind hem is what you would use if you don't want to see a seam on the front of the garment. And the way you do this, first you finish your raw edge, okay? Then, suppose this is your garment. So here's your pant leg going that way. Okay, it goes that way. You would sew here, but you would set it on the blind hem option. That's the one right there. And what it does 3 stitches, jumps over, 3 stitches, jumps over, 3 stitches, jumps over. Let's do the black thread because you can see it better that way. All right, I don't know if you can see. See how it does 3 stitches, then it jumps over, 3 stitches. And on the front, all you see is those little ticks. Of course, this is black thread, so they're very obvious, but when the thread was the same color as the fabric, you can barely see it. And of course, they have a foot to help you with that. All right. Then you have really thick denim that it's impossible to hem up because it's so hard for your machine. By the time you do all this, look how bulky it is. So what you do, you measure your first fold, your second fold, and then you cut this. You see that? You cut it, push it over there, fold it, and fold it again. And now it's not as bulky at all. Okay. Of course, we talked about bias hem, bias bound, zigzag finishes, overcast finishes. One last thing I want to tell you is curved hems. We got 2 kinds. One is curved out, one is curved in. You always, always, always want to pin it because you see all these irregularities, they will look really bad. So whenever you do one of these hems, first you finish your raw edge with overcast or zigzag, then you measure it, then you pin it. And when you iron this, you don't push the iron, but you set it down, pick it up, set it down, pick it up, set it down, pick it up. Because if you push it, you're going to create all these irregularities. See how it does that number? You don't want that. Okay, you can do this. So remember, you pick it up, push it down. Now, the other type of curve, where it's inwards, the fabric will not stretch, so you need to help it. And you take your scissors and you clip, 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 and that gives it more flexibility to go around. And of course, on the front, it will look like this. On the front, it would look like this, and you will just have a real nice top stitch going all the way around. So that is everything about hemming, everything about bias tape, and everything about finishes. Let's see, and I do have tons of links. There is a really cool video how you can do a curved hem using a paper, like this kind of paper. You just got to go to that YouTube video. It's awesome. Actually, it's a Facebook video. All right, we talked about that. We talked about that. We talked about blind hem. We talked about thick. All right. As far as finishes, your options are you can finish your raw edges using pinking shears. Some materials will be fine with that, but some will still fray. Then you got your zigzag. Then you got, of course, the French seam that we learned about in previous lessons. Then we got the bias bound that we just talked about. We have the flat felled, which we learned in a previous lesson. And we got the overcast seam. Your machine should have these features. That's your zigzag. That's your blind hem. And that is your overcast. But your machine should have something similar to those. And then as far as bias tape, you can have single fold and double fold. What does that mean? Single fold means that the 2 edges are folded in. Double fold means that the 2 edges have been folded in and it was also folded in half. So now it's double folded. You got your edges, but you also have it folded. And These are used for a number of things. You can do really pretty necklines. You can just anything. I mean, you can do casting for elastic recording. Just all kinds of stuff. I'm going to give you a copy of this in class. So now let's make an apron. If my hands will work. All right, for my apron. As you can see, my apron is too big for me. Why? Because I made it for my husband, actually. It goes from almost my neck down to my knees. You measure whatever you're making. You're making it for your child. Measure from wherever you want to go to wherever you want to go. The waistline, which is where you're going to have this corner. If you put your hand on your hip and you bend to your side, wherever your body bends, that's where your waist is. Okay, so that's probably where I would want to do this. And then you measure however much you want from here to here. This, how wide you want this or how tall you want this, it all depends. If you got a small child, this is obviously going to be smaller. As far as the apron strings and the neckties and the finishing here. So let's talk about the instructions here. Whenever you're cutting your main piece, you always fold it down the middle and then cut one time, because you want left and right to be exactly symmetrical. You don't want to cut one bigger than the other. So if you fold it face to face, you mark it according to whatever measurements you decided you want to have, then you can go ahead and cut it and they'll be symmetrical. Your measurements for each seam, like this is going to be a narrow hem. So we're going to use an additional half an inch. For my bottom hem, I like it to be about 2 inches plus the roll, because it's going to be double fold hem. So it's going to be 2.5 inches in addition to my length. Same thing up here. I want this to be nice and wide. I don't want a narrow, skinny hem up there. So it's going to be another, say, 2.5. I'll fold it at 2 and I'll fold it again at half. So first step, what you do is you hem this side, and then you do your nice hem down at the bottom with a real pretty top stitch. If you want to, you can use some decorative. It's up to you. Same thing here. 2.5, fold it. Remember, the first time you fold the edge, the second time you fold your actual hem. And then you do a pretty decorative stitch if you want to. Okay, so now what we need to do is install bias tape here. One option is to buy or to make 3 yards of bias tape, and this whole thing is bias tape. This is connected and this is free flowing, okay? And you can cut this in half if you want to and tie them, or you can just loop it over your neck. That's one option. The other option is to just do bias tape on the curved lateral sides, and then this here would be straps like you would do for a bag. And this here could be spaghetti strap. Spaghetti strap is no different from these straps. These are usually about an inch, 1.5 inches wide. You sew them like we did last week when we made the bag, and then you finish your ends. You tuck them in and you sew over the top of it. Okay, you attach them to your apron. And then this here is exactly like these, only a lot narrower. That's why they're called spaghetti straps. You sew them inside out, and then you turn them right side out, and you attach it to your apron. I would recommend you attach it inside of this bias tape so you don't see the ends. Same thing here. So this is our apron. Now, as far as the pocket, my pocket is pretty wide, okay? Because in the picture, if you can see, I got a seam down the middle. So I got really 2 pockets. It's a cow thing, I guess. I don't know. You measure your pocket, and again, you need 1/4 inch seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance. And here, I want about 2 inches because I want a nice hem up here. Again, you can do a decorative stitch over the top of that. Iron it real good. This one is double fold. These are not double fold because they're going to be inside of a seam. But this one, you're going to fold it and then fold it again at your 1.5 inch or 2 inches, however much you want. This, if you don't have enough fabric, then go ahead and zigzag the inside of this hem before you fold it over. just because you don't want it to be fraying. Okay, iron it real good, pin it to your apron where you want it to be, and then sew it. Reinforce your seam here, go all the way around, reinforce your seam here. If you want to do double stitching, that's fine too, double top stitch. If you want to do, put your tools in there, put your glasses in there, whatever, you can take some painter's tape and tape it right there and sew a straight line. Or you can, like I did here, I did one down the middle. My painter's tape was in the center, and then I sewed exactly down the middle, and now I have 2 pockets. So this is our apron that we will be making in lesson number 3. If you have any questions, as always, you can reach out and we can talk.